let's start the meeting at 4:04. Okay, first thing is there anything urgent that came up that we need to possibly amend the agenda? We're mainly talking about work plan stuff and ARPA, as well as some other stuff. Okay.
Quick question, Michael. Has anybody taken on note-taking? I think it's my week.
Okay.
So I'm on it.
Good.
I'm on it.
Okay, let's go talking about minutes. Let's go to minutes. Let me pull up a couple of them so we can keep up with everything. Share screen. Let's see. 21st. Oh yeah, I guess this is. I think this is one of the later ones. We should have two sets here. So we have March 21st minutes here. You want to read over them? Tom took them. I did a bunch of edits that I just accepted after Tom thought it was all right. Actually, it looks like not everything, but accepted. But so I'll let you guys skim through it there. Let me know when you're ready to move on.
Yeah, you can go up.
Okay.
I'm good.
You good? Okay. Oh, yeah, this is the easy part.
I'm good.
Good.
Yep, good.
Yeah.
Michael,
Yes.
you did not add the one word I asked you to add.
Oopsie. I thought you, well, whatever it is, what is it?
Under agenda item 7, almost near the end of your big paragraph, I noted that the community center
Oh, yeah, right.
solar should also be community center building. Yeah. Should also be considered for solar. Yeah.
Okay.
The last sentence just reads funny. I don't know that I even kind of know what it says.
Yeah, I
Which
agree with
one?
that, Frank.
Which one? This Pine Hill or?
Yep, that sentence. Yep.
Does that mean that if the letter is initiated sooner, then we'll be locked into better rates? Like the project will be more fiscally attractive?
I guess, yes. Project.
Payment blocks. Yeah, that sounds like that smart tranche, however you pronounce that word.
into enable project. Lock to hire even it's jargony, it's really, they're called blocks into a higher. Guess I should keep more attractive.
Or even like early, I guess it's an earlier block, right?
All right, well, it's a higher, an earlier, more attractive. All right, that could be.
Yeah,
Financially attractive?
Earlier. Okay. More attractive, more financially attractive. Ever since. That work?
yep.
I'm good. Thanks so much.
I'm good with the
Good.
rest of it.
I move that we approve the minutes as edited.
Second,
Seconded.
Whoever did, who knows? Any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Tom,
I,
Frank,
aye,
Andy,
Aye.
Fred, Brad.
Aye.
Okay, 6-0. Save this and go save the other one. Okay. Stop sharing. Share the other minutes. Where are you? Ah. Oh, there we go. I move this. Okay, do you guys see a one pager?
March 16, yep.
can you make it a little bit larger, please, Michael?
How's that?
Oh, you can't read the, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
I think it was 9:02 AM, wasn't it?
good catch.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, right there.
No, this is not that one.
Yeah, this was
It
late.
was PM.
This
This
is the
was,
one, this is not the.
This wasn't the Saturday meeting?
No,
This is the 16th,
yeah.
Right, the Saturday
Oh,
The
meeting
meeting was the
26th.
26th.
the 26th, right?
yeah, I was on the late one, not the early one. So
Nice try, everybody.
Yeah,
Confusing.
In answer to the question, do we add the attachments? I don't think we need to.
Okay,
That's just my opinion.
They just need to be listed as being discussed at the meeting at the bottom.
do you think this list is good enough the way it was put here? Do I have to put a separate list?
Usually it's a separate list.
Okay.
And that's true certainly of a real formal board like select board or regulatory board like Board of Health, but
Yeah, it
I
might
don't
be
know.
okay as this.
do we need to really.
I mean, you have them as a list as it is in the body of the thing. It's almost repetitive to,
Yeah,
Right, yeah, the 3 presentations above. The above presentations, yep, that covers it.
Any other edits?
Looks good.
I move to approve the minutes as edited.
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I. Tom,
aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Andy.
I,
Did I get you last time, Andy?
yeah, you did.
Okay, Brad,
Aye.
you're off the screen, so I can't tell. 6-0. Approved.
I'm here.
Do we need to have the person that typed the minutes listed on?
No,
this
we
one?
don't. I've been taking it off once it's approved.
Okay,
People used to submit it formally. I know there's that style, but once I clean it up and give it a new name and turn it into a PDF, which I just started doing after each meeting, I just sort of just add in that it was, oh yeah, what's today? Is it April? I just will clean it up. And send it in. And I guess I'll have to do it on the other one too. Okay, let me stop sharing here. So I just want to save these things, sorry. All the little protocol stuff, which is important. Okay. The main agenda item we had for this meeting was to start this work on developing a work plan for the next year. And after our discussion last time, I don't see Dorothy here. Do we know anything?
She texted that she was gonna be 20 or 30 minutes late.
Okay. Why don't we, I see one of the other agenda, we'll move it up since Roger's also here, is that I had sent out some stuff that you guys got, whatever, some weeks ago about an ARPA proposal that I think the water commissioners have put together regarding downtown water and sewer. And Roger Demler, a longstanding water commissioner, was asked to come talk to us. I assume it's about whether is your issue, Roger, that you view this as something in our domain that you want to get some support from us for, or you could explain the purpose of what it is and what you're looking for.
You're muted, Roger.
there you go.
Might have been a good thing. Oops. And that, I also lost. Are we still on?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hear you. You hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm in the wrong page here somehow.
Mhm. Down at the very bottom is a little icon of like a video camera, a little blue circle with a white video camera.
Really? I don't know what that is.
It's an icon.
That's
Wait a
the
minute.
the Zoom icon if you
Oh, I see what
totally
you mean.
lost it.
Okay,
Oh, I see what you mean.
there we go.
Off
All right. I've been involved in trying to understand what's the risks are and possible solutions are for the downtown water and or sewer system for a long time. And Gino's been worried about that for quite a while. He's done probably more work than the Water Commission has on this. And what perhaps the best thing for me to do, I can try to run through that presentation we gave to the town meeting in 2017. Is that okay?
Sure. Just run through a quick, I don't know. I mean, I read through it. Other people can do it, but okay, just do a quick run for people.
And this will give me talking points and you an opportunity to ask questions. Okay. going up to 2017, there was a town center water and wastewater options committee that was jointly appointed by the select board and the water commissioners, and quite a few people were involved in collecting the information that we had. This picture here of downtown, I yesterday sat down and counted, there are at least 75 septic systems and 75 wells in that area.
You might want to advance your slide.
Pardon me?
We're still looking at the first slide.
Really?
Yeah. I am. What do other people see?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Same.
slide 1.
Because you're not in presentation mode, that's why.
Ah.
That little board lower right
Right
icon.
next to the 71% to the left of it, there's a little thing, click on it.
Being down,
There you go.
A little bit to
Now
your right,
I'm-
a little more right, one more right. There you go.
Yeah.
that
Right
one.
there, right there.
Now,
that's what I was on.
Click.
okay, give it a sec to catch up with you.
Are you on the picture now?
Now
We're
we're on the
actually
third
on
one.
slide 3 now. You could just click slide 2 on the left-hand side, that'll do it.
Well, let me get out of here. This is not working from the full view. Okay, so we've got, at the time, there were 75 wells and 75 septic systems in this area. And there are some new ones from development in this area. The important thing is if you look at the red hashed circles, that is the current regulations for public water supplies that need to be undeveloped with no roads and no buildings on it. As you can see, none of the current public water supplies in town could be built now. I'm sure DPW will bend over backwards to help you stay in business, but they're very reluctant to increase capacity on anything like this. Let's try the next one. At the time, we had identified the obvious safety concerns, the contamination from septic systems or a train wreck and that kind of stuff. The fact that there are no publicly available restrooms anywhere downtown, either for sports people or the only restaurant in town that has one is the next to the across from the fire station there.
Heritage.
And if something goes haywire, it gets really expensive. For example, the 3 wells that serve the elderly housing thing that the town owns got into some trouble because they had some exceedances and magnesium and things like that. And the DEP got involved and required a complete redesign and engineering of the whole works, including adding treatment processes and that kind of stuff. And that was $350,000, and that was about 15 years ago. They're going through that whole process all over again, as there's a thing on the warrant to try to fix that permanently. Because we don't have an active water main, very few places have sprinkler systems in their buildings, and there's a couple that do at extreme expense to put in tanks and pumps and backup generators and that sort of thing. What isn't on this list is water quality, and that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue as time goes on. For example, the town center well next to the town offices is now on watch list for the PFAS. I think they have to be tested every month now. Costs about $1,000. I don't have the results from other public wells in town yet, but I'm sure there'll be others. And then the fact that we don't have town water or hopefully sewers really discourages improvements and investments in the town because they're really not allowed to expand the demand very much. The wells that the town own are a bit marginal. Commercial tax base appears to be stagnant because nobody wants to invest there. Things we would like to see there perhaps need more water. The state's newly required sprinkler system impacted the library building process significantly, and you'll see a giant new backup generator next to the town offices, and there's a big water storage tank there. That may well happen to churches in the future, we don't know.
Quick question, I'm taking notes. I missed I missed the cost on the library, but I thought that was important to add.
Excuse me?
The cost on the library, I didn't catch it before we moved on.
Yeah,
and I
but I'm
thought
not sure that's relevant to what we do.
Okay,
I don't want to get into editing minutes with a lot of things. that-
okay,
Yeah.
done, no problem.
I don't have a number off the top of my head for the library,
problem.
but it's
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to slow down.
$500,000 or more, I'm sure.
That's what the list is, yeah.
Now, putting in a public water supply is a bit tricky. The DEP loves overburden wells. I sink a well into what should be a gravel pit with a lot of surrounding area to feed it. This picture you're looking at here are the likely places in the northeast of town. Pink says, yeah, that's pretty porous stuff. Looks like it's decent watershed. The brighter red stuff around Farm Pond is pretty obvious. That's mostly sand and gravel and spring fed as best we can tell. The spot with the diamond on it is the place that we had a test well drilled a number of years ago in gravel that appeared to be viable for a decent amount of water. Water quality was sort of okay, but it was only pumped at a low rate for a couple of days. In order to prove that that's a good spot, you really have to put in a bigger pipe and pump it for 4 or 5 days with the DEP watching. Interesting, there's something of a fire main system that runs up and down Main Street that would save a lot of money on putting in a water system. And the most important thing is they have a fire main that goes under the railroad tracks already, which is a huge bureaucratic hurdle that we've gotten over. We think this well out at the end of Morse Road there might have some potential for the growth of downtown. Back in the 2017, we said putting in a water system for practically everybody on that first map would be about $4 million. I'm sure that's pessimistic in today's dollars.
Roger, can I ask you, you're still on this slide?
Do what?
Could I ask you a question while you're still on this?
Sure,
slide?
yeah, before you forget.
Yep, before I forget. The test well for your new ARPA project, and I did read that, but it was a couple weeks ago and I forgot it already. The next stage of the project that you're asking for ARPA money, is that more tests at the same location with a larger, more higher diameter well, or?
Yeah, that's what I think is the most obvious thing to do. If you want to make sure that you've got a well before you invest a lot of money in distribution and that sort of stuff, that's where I would try it. I know John would like to put one down by Farm Pond.
The problem with new DEP public water supplies is you need a fair amount of land, very large radius around the well.
Yep.
The
There is-
ones that they, and I actually went down to Morse Road a couple weeks ago because I've never done the trail, so
Okay,
I wanted to do. And I found one well. Is there more than one? Because the one I found was very close to Morse Road. You know, just 20, 30 yards into the trail, or is that?
there are two pipes
the
there.
location?
They both seemed okay, and the one you came across is the closest one to the road. We would certainly want to move that pipe further north.
I'm glad to hear that because it seemed like very close to the property line of the last house on Morse Road.
Right. And also it's close to some land that the Douse family owns. And in order to get that passed, we would either need a easement or buy some land from them. to
Yeah,
make sure-
you need control. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need control. Yeah,
So we need
good.
the last time I looked at that land next to that well, it was like 40 or 50 acres, and it was assessed at $25,000 because it's so wet. So conceivable, we could get control of more land without breaking the bank.
Okay, thanks.
What else? we got here? Oh, septic systems. There is a fairly popular thing out west, even for new development, to give every piece of property, put in a septic tank at every property with a pump in it. And then you only have to deal with the liquid which you pump to a treatment plant that's quite a bit simpler than one that handles solids. And since it's only liquid, you don't have to have a lot of pitch in the pipe to get flow. There can be a plastic flexible pipe that's easy to install. And then you have some pretty formal way of requiring the septic tanks to get pumped on some periodic basis, perhaps on a mandatory basis where the town does it and sends you a bill or something like that. But anyway, you can imagine it simplifies a lot of the system itself and makes a somewhat simpler treatment plant. Looking at this map, a nice place to put it would be in the Jameson Field on your way up to Pine Hill School. The planning board with Gino has managed to test that some recently to see what kind of shape it's in, and it appears to be quite viable. There were 3 test holes dug down to at least 15 feet, no sign of water. Soil morphology looks pretty good to the engineer that did the testing. And that was a pretty easy test to do. In fact, John and his guys dug the trenches for the engineers. If you want to use that field or some other thing, it once again gets pretty expensive because in the size of the system we're talking about, the DEP gets heavily involved. There's a lot of geological work that has to be done. There's testing where you pump a lot of water into them to see what happens. And again, that's one of the other possibility we are offering is to do a proof test of that field to make sure we know that would work if we wanted to do a central septic system for the town there. And again, somewhat optimistically, we said we could probably take care of almost all the houses on that, houses and public buildings in that map for $4 million. Probably quite a bit more than that now.
Roger, can I ask you another question on this map?
Yep.
If you could do me a favor, because I'm not sure everybody on the committee yet may know where you're talking about. Could you put your cursor on Jameson Field?
Right there. Can you see that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew where it was, so I wanted to make sure everybody else. And while you have it there, my question, I actually have a lot of the data, these wells, including all the PFAS data.
Yep.
For all the public wells, and there's about on this map,
I think it's 12.
and then some are off this map. I think there's about 10 on this map, but like St. Teresa's and I think is on there, but regardless. And some of the PFAS numbers are worrisome. In fact, the town center well is a hair under 20. It's running around 18.
Right.
And some of the others are creeping up there. I'll try to keep this question short. Putting a large septic field not far from the many of the existing septic systems, are we really gaining much? The aquifer is fairly compromised already from the 400 years of septic coming out of some of these buildings. So do we really want to keep putting more septic in what clearly you show in a lot of the zone ones of these public wells?
Yeah. That's a good question. By the time that new field has stuff going into it, it's going to be pretty well cleaned up. And it's going to be monitored. So if something goes haywire, we're going to see it. Right now, about the only time anybody would know something's wrong with one of those, particularly public water supplies, is at the annual chemical tests they do at the end of the year. As far as contamination of private wells, those wells never get tested. Once they're installed and certified, nobody ever tests their water quality.
We now have some PFAS numbers, and some of them are high.
Yeah,
Private wells in that area.
I'm sure
Private wells, people can test it. Well, okay.
they do. We don't typically get the results. There's some really nice kits you can get online, and you don't have to report anything.
Oh, you can't do PFAS from an online kit.
No, I know that.
Mailed kit, but the DEP, the free residential PFAS program, we're getting data from that neighborhood.
Yeah.
You
So that,
close to finish? I guess I just want to make an umbrella comment, but go on.
yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I guess I'll jump in and say, if I understand where this is going, is that you want to go for an ARPA project, that's some further spending to proof out on the supply side, water supply up at the Morse Road area, as well as do some more work on the next steps for seeing whether there's a shared septic there in Jameson Field. That would make some sense. And the question is whether you're coming to this Energy and Sustainability Committee to see whether this is within our purview to make any comment about. And as maybe a sustainability issue, energy side, there could be more energy costs with some of these communal things or not, but from some sort of sustainability definition. I'll jump in and just say that there's complicated issues on both the water supply and the septic side. I mean, I spent some time looking at this when we were dealing with the projects on Hunting Lane and the shared septic that would go in the field there. I'll venture to say that I'm not sure that this is a sustainability issue that's within the purview of our committee. And I think we could spend, and it's a very interesting, all these ideas are interesting and I think are important to bat around, but I'm not sure that this is something that I feel comfortable as an Energy and Sustainability Committee member weighing in on as an ARPA project. As the use of ARPA money, I have issues about how ARPA money gets used anyway. I think it shouldn't be anything more special than any other project that would come
Right.
before the town. And so I hope that they decide projects based on what they would do anyway, even if we didn't have ARPA money. But I have issues about, so I'm not sure that this is, I mean, I understand there's concerns about water quality and the septic interactions, but I think there's a lot of vulnerabilities, even with a shared system or with the vulnerabilities of the aquifer up on Morse Road and its vulnerability to contamination versus the contamination of the bedrock wells that are downtown from things there. And so I think it's quite complicated to try to balance the trade-offs of which one's more quote unquote sustainable than the other. And the concentrations and even just the financial or management sustainability of a managed treatment plant downtown. They're complicated to run. They require a lot of costs and contingencies to operate a big treatment plant down there. And when they go bad, and they always have management problems even with different technologies. So part of me I'll venture to say that I would love to spend a lot of time discussing this project and some of the pluses and minuses of different parts of it or the issues. But I'm not sure that that's an issue that I think is one for our committee. And because I have concerns with lots of the ideas, and I'm not sure whether sustainability, the issue of sustainability is where we would want to put a lot of our time and energy for this committee. As a resident, I feel differently about these projects, but as a member of this committee, I don't think that this is something that I would feel comfortable weighing in on. So I'm just going to stop there because I have a lot of questions about a lot of these issues and some of the data there, even of Jameson Field, just as an example. I know the data from Jameson Field when you did the perk tests, that it was never went before the Board of Health formally, and that there's question marks about about that data there and what the engineer report did and what Sean did. And so it would be nice to reconcile that and stuff like that before even spending a lot more money. But that's a controversial topic. I mean, and I know about it because I spent some time talking about it when it was done with the Board of Health because I live with that. And we talked about some of the findings there and some of the data that needs to be just worked out, but it's a process. But I don't know. So for our point of view, I guess there's so much there that I don't think it's something for our committee to weigh in that. So I'll stop there and let other people talk. We generally use the hand raising thing to go, but let the others talk before even maybe you want to comment, react, but I'll let Brad go and then Andy and then Fred.
Let me say a few things, Michael.
Yeah.
I've sent this thing around as a suggestion for lots of people to get involved in this, and it's not likely that the Water Commission by themselves has enough horsepower to actually get this down the road. So we're asking for help and input, and certainly your concerns about all these little details is something that's bugged us as well, so.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to figure out, what's the right forum to pursue this, because I know it's been a lingering issue.
Yeah,
So,
we're
but we could talk, we could end with that kind of thing, depending on what other people think about for the
Yeah.
committee. That's just my point of view. Let's hear the others and then we
Yeah.
can see where we end up.
I mean, I think, sorry, I'm coming in kind of loud. Is this okay for everyone?
Yeah, it's fine, Brad.
Okay. I mean, I can very much see Michael's point, that, you know, it might just not be in our purview, but, you know, I find it very interesting. And I actually had a question for Tom regarding the PFAS. Where do you think that's originating from? Just, you know, as we're talking about the shared septic in
Septic,
Jamison Field.
my gut response right now from the PFAS I've been seeing coming in from the last 9 months in Sherborn is largely because we don't have a lot of manufacturing septic, but we do have corners of town that are near known sources like the landfill, like General Chemical, and those neighborhoods, it could be a different picture, but my guess is downtown. It's
But it's also showing up in other parts of Sherborn.
it's showing up all over town.
Right, so
Yeah,
it's not just a downtown issue, but I'll still venture to say, I don't know whether it's a procedural issue for this committee. Do we want to get into this level of discussion about things versus decide how much it's within the purview of our committee to go into this versus the fact that we could have a whole other separate meeting to talk about this stuff. Since we do have other agenda items that are important to us. And this is something that is very interesting, could take a lot of time. And so I just want to get a sense of how much we want to invest in this as a committee. So I'd rather get some comments about that, and then we can decide what details to get into.
I
Andy?
think your point's reasonable, Michael.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Brad. I didn't mean to cut you off. But
I concur completely with you, Michael, on this. I have personal reservations about the development of the downtown providing water and sewage for that area. And it's the possibility of it opening the door to unfettered development of that area. However, in light of this, and I do agree that it's outside the purview of our committee, I'll limit my comments to just one question for Roger, and that is, you've got an estimate of $4 million for, I think, both the shared septic ideas and also for the water. So is it a combined $8 million that would be
It would be a
expected?
combined 8 million.
So it would be combined. Okay.
that's
And-
an
and
old,
that
those
was-
are old numbers.
And those are old numbers.
Old numbers, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll jump in
Let's
next. 'cause
let's
I-
stay at the
looks like
high
I'm-
level first, so we can see what we want to spend our time on.
I concur, Michael, with your comments. I think it's really interesting. It's something that I'd like to stay informed on, but I'm not sure it's in the purview of our group.
I'll keep you posted.
Do you know, Tom, just go when somebody ends, go.
Okay, I just want to note that planning board is interested in this topic and plans to have a meeting focused on it at the first June meeting. So, and I believe at that meeting, the plan is to invite other boards or interested people to participate. So just to keep that in the background, that's all.
And
Yeah,
I
we
can
should all
add
get-
a similar note, our groundwater protection committee is very interested, and we have invited Roger to our next meeting to give this presentation.
What
And
date is
that's
that?
Wednesday night, the 13th, so.
So people should go there, because, right,
And I agree with you, Michael, for this committee, I think it might be slightly outside the mission statement.
My question is, we're not, not just energy, we're also sustainability. Maybe not at this point, but doesn't this infringe on the sustainability and the quality of the downtown and the aquifer of the center of our town? And isn't that ultimately a sustainability?
Well, you know, if Frank, if I could just butt in then. I see sustainability as far as this project really cutting both ways. I think you're right. You want to have water systems and managed septic systems that protect the integrity of the environment. However, my concern is the unfettered development that it could open up to that area that could cause also a very large impact on our sustainability.
Well, no, I agree 100% with that. And I'm not sure that this is the right moment in time for the sustainability to talk on this topic, but it is ultimately whether we endorse it or we don't, or we work with how, you know, the best ways of implementing it is so that it maintains the environment and environmental integrity of the area. But I just, to me, it seems like a sustainability issue for the environment and for the future of the center of our town, whichever way we decide to kind of, you know,
I agree that
advocate for it.
it's sustainability of our water supply is an issue for our whole town, and the sustainability of where all this effluent is going from all of our septics is an issue. Probably the biggest issue for, if I was going to do sustainability sometimes on the septic, is controlling a little bit more what people put down their drains, and a lot more education on that, because it's still going to go somewhere, whether it's a collective system or the individual systems, and they have different pluses and minuses as to how well they'll function, obviously. But I guess it comes back a little to, I'll loop it into what Roger was saying about how they're looking to people who want to keep working on this idea, because because there's a lot to it. And the question is whether we, at this point, given what we're about to turn to our next agenda item, is our work plan, where this fits in, and whether somebody here, whether this fits in for this, whether there's a role for the sustainability coordinators want to spend their time on this as part of a work plan we all develop, or whether any of us want to do it. I'll say for myself that I see a large enough agenda item for sustainability and dealing with the climate change issues for our committee and the coordinators, that I don't see room for that in the short run, other than people want to monitor this and see whether there's things to monitor as individuals. But that's why I would say that I don't deny the broader water quality sustainability issues, but I think it's secondary to a lot of the things that we need to do in the next year or so. Thank you. So, I mean, I'm getting whether people want to, attend the planning board meeting and attend the groundwater protection meeting and weigh in that way. And we can see how it evolves. But as something that we would want to take on, I think we have quite more than enough other work to do that's directly within more of our purview that we need to show some progress on. So I guess I don't know whether to just see whether anybody from the committee itself or the coordinators feel like this is something that's going to replace all the kind of priority issues that we think we're going to do. And that if people as individuals want to help and attend, and we keep our finger on the pulse of this thing, even though Roger would like somebody who's actually going to do more. But does anybody feel like differently?
Well, if you're talking about just somebody on the committee, serving as the conduit of information, I'll be engaged in this with groundwater, so I can update this committee.
Thanks, Tom.
That's a good idea.
But I don't want to take any more projects. on behalf of this committee.
Well, you know, I mean, I assume it's because of your other work that it'll make
Yeah.
sense to do it. Otherwise, I could believe, so that you can see whether things move along in a way that makes some sense for our participation. Is that the way we want to leave it, I think?
And I'm on the planning board, so I'll be at that planning
Yeah.
board meeting, so I can.
Okay,
vote
so you
for that.
can, we'll have the two of you could put your heads together
Yeah,
and see how it evolves.
Right.
To see it, because yeah, it's a very complicated issue. For at least for me, about what quality issues there, the risks of the different systems. But I don't want to get into it here versus I think it would be a much better forum, a groundwater protection, a planning board, to actually raise a lot of the issues that people started raising here. And that
Right.
would-
okay. Well, thank you for your input. Appreciate it. And
I don't know, Brad, did you want to
Thank
say
you,
something
Roger.
before, Roger?
Yeah, real quick comment. We don't need to discuss it. It's a little bit of a moonshot too, but just to kind of make this a little more relevant to sustainability. If we do pursue the geothermal for Pine Hill, and you know, a joint septic field is seriously considered for Jameson, this might be an opportunity to, you know, put in like a horizontal geothermal loop there, because the septic field will keep the soil wet. It'll increase the efficiency of the horizontal loop. That's it.
yep.
I'm not sure you're allowed to do them together, but yeah, right. Regulatory issues might supersede that kind of thing there, but okay, something to keep in
Right.
mind.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Roger.
Steve.
Yep.
I don't want to seem too negative. It's just a matter, we're just trying to figure out what to do.
Why don't you
Ourselves.
raised all the questions I have, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no. That's why I could see it going on for a lot of time. I have a lot of issues that are, we'll leave it at that. Okay,
Okay,
thank you for your
thanks.
time, Roger, and good luck with the other meetings.
Right.
Okay, I see Dorothy is here. I'll leave it to, turn over to you on Gino about work plan stuff. Does that seem appropriate? How do you two want to do it?
Dorothea, why don't you start?
You're muted, Dorothea. Dorothea, you're muted.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused about work plan stuff. What do you mean by that? Michael?
At the last meeting, we discussed how we were going to do that we were all on the same page about a process of what the coordinators and the energy committee would try to coordinate in doing on in terms of coming up with sort of a work plan for sustainability, that we would, there was that process that we laid out for advisory, and that we had discussed before advisory about a work plan that the coordinators and hopefully the committee itself as a whole would agree upon, that would then be presented to the select board and the town administrator to get their buy-in. It's part of that process of getting a bigger public buy-in to what we're all doing, and that then we get some approval and buy-in with those, with the town administrator and the select board, and then those are that would sort of guide what we do over the next year or so. And then that was also, and then we could also assess, and even in determining what we do, and I don't want to get hung up on whether advisory wants to see metrics of performance or things like that, as opposed to, I think for our own internal work, we wanted to pair this with some sense of metrics about how we decide what we do and how we decide how well we're doing for ourselves, and what determines to what extent we even change directions about what we're doing. And so my understanding that we left the last meeting, we started battering around ideas that that at our last meeting, it seemed to make the most sense that you and Gino would come up with a beginning draft of some ideas for a work plan. Does that ring a bell to you from our last meeting?
I see Gino's hand up. I basically, maybe that didn't compute with me completely that you were expecting a draft, but I can certainly talk about the things that will come up next month in regards what I will do in April, May, June, and July, if that's helping. Otherwise, I would like to turn to Gino. Maybe he has something to say.
Yeah, I started with a kind of a high level outline of projects that the town may be pursuing in the next several years. You know, it's very, very rough and very preliminary, but I do not have specific details on steps over the next few months, say, but I can put that on the screen, the general outline, if you'd like, as a starting point, and we can talk about that. Does that sound? like a
Sure,
way
I
to
guess
start?
I'd like to get to specifics, but I guess I do want to, I mean, others might feel different. I want to spend a minute or so. I don't want to belabor it, but whether we're in, do we feel that we want to have a somewhat of an ongoing work plan, which was what was put forth at advisory as a process. And whether that, and others can correct me if I misunderstood the outcome of our last couple of meetings about this stuff, that whether we're in agreement that we would actually come up with a plan that of activities that we think are the highest priority to do over the next 6 months or a year. I mean, it could be an evolving plan, but that whether there is something that as a whole we were coming to some agreement about, or whether each person's going to do their own thing. Committee does its own thing with its own things. You, Dorothea, do your own thing. Gino does their own thing, versus what I thought we were putting together was something that was somewhat of a consensus about that, but that would then go through getting select board approval so that we got buy-in at some higher level. I thought that was part of one of the points you had made, Dorothea, about how do you get buy-in at a higher political level, and how we do that. I don't know, Fred, you want to go give a comment before I guess maybe Dorothea replies or not?
Sure. I mean, I just think that having a plan is really important, and it can change over time, you know, priorities shift. But without a plan, I think it gets a lot more difficult talking to advisory, select board, other people, other groups in town to say, well, we're just kind of doing our thing, don't worry about it. We can do our thing, but writing it down into a plan, I think, is very important, personally.
Question is whether we have a consensus plan, or whether it is each party does their thing, so to speak, is the other extreme, and where we overlap. Frank.
Yeah, I don't want to take this in any wrong direction, and I agree with Fred, and I thought, but I have a question. I just don't understand. We have the students' petition, the citizens' petition for the crisis action plan. We've talked about doing an energy action plan for our town, which is going to take a lot of work and direction, and that is going to have a number of action items associated with it, and working with a number of different groups. Is that part of what we're talking about here, or is that separate from what Gino and Dorothea's overarching goal is going to be? Are these two separate things?
I would think that they overlap. And that we're trying to coordinate. I mean, the question is what coordination we do in terms of what, as a committee members we do versus what Gino and Dorothea do and report to the town administrator. As we said in the meeting there, and they prefer the report to the town administrator and what they decide to do to that and what role the select board plays in that and what role we play in any of this. And as a committee. And yeah, I think whether doing a climate action plan itself is an activity itself of high priority versus, and whether it's not funded or whether we come up with, as a committee, we want to be prepared to spend our time on the aggregation plan when it pops up, and to what extent we want to do anything on heat pumps or a little solar program, and what else we committee members want to do, whether it's regulatory issues with the planning board that you, Frank, talked about before. We can have our own list of things to do. And the question is, to what extent do we coordinate? If we're going to do a little mini solar plan, do we want to, is that something that we want to get buy-in from Dorothea to participate with, or whether we do it on our own and you have your activities, Dorothea, that you're doing over the next 3 or 4 months as you were willing to present, and whether that has room for that, or to what extent we say the committee members want to participate in doing something like that. Do you want to buy into that? That we coordinate on something like that? And that's part of whether the plan I thought we were talking about, excuse me, was something of coordinating. I'll call it 3 parties, Gino, Dorothea, and the committee, on activities we agree on have priority and are important to do, and that we evaluate how we do it and how successful we are with them, and make our changes about what we're doing. So that's why I thought there'd be an overarching plan, and I thought that we were on the same page about that, but I guess we weren't. And maybe we each present what the kind of things we want to do and see what overlap there is, and how that fits together. This may be a way to get at it if we're not getting a consensus about coming up with an overall plan, and not get bogged down by that, and just listen to what Gino and Dorothea want to do. And then we have to put our own 2 cents together about what it is each of us want to do, as a mixture of our own, or whether there's some participation in what the others are doing. So I don't know. So Dorothea, I guess I thought there was a consensus before about doing an overarching plan, and that's what you and Gino were going to start thinking of, what that would look like, and that we do that. But maybe did I miss something?
I see nodding from Gino. So certainly, if you have something to present, Gino, please share.
As I said, this is just kind of a very rough start of things we might want to do over the next few years without specifying timelines over the next 4 months or 5 months. And, with rough timetables on each item. And obviously I focused on the town side and what the town can do. And there's actually a 7th, well, either a 7th one or a 4th bullet point to the 6th one, and that's the building code changes. And
I think that should be easily a 7th one, maybe,
yeah, okay.
because I think that's a big priority to get muster.
Would that be purely municipal in scope, or would that extend out to residential too?
It's
Oh, no,
purely,
that would be townwide residential
Okay.
and commercial.
yeah, no, I think that's an important one to add as a separate, because of,
Yeah, I don't really see residents. I think this is great, Gino, but I don't see
Well, that's because of the way they separated the two things that were, I don't,
Yeah, this looks like it's just municipal.
right, that's the
That's
way,
what I focused on, yeah.
Yeah.
But the building code is a municipal issue because it has to be adopted at the municipal level.
Right.
it's a town meeting, if I recall, basically.
Right,
Although some of it'll be automatic. Depending on when the state adopts something, the question is whether we go more.
Right.
And okay.
Gino, this is very helpful to see. It'd be great when these things actually come to pass, but I'm encouraged to see this list here.
I'd also say, I'm struggling with something here. In terms of a true plan, until we have our climate action plan together, we don't know what the major activities are going to be in town, whether, regardless of whether it's ours or, town and forest or whatever. So I could see building a short-term plan to bring us through to the period when the climate action plan comes up. And that I would think would very much focus us on what are the key priorities.
Yeah, we'll have our same old fight about the fact that I think we already know what the priorities are, even without a plan. But that's
A plan formalizes it enough so others can look at it and say, yeah, this makes sense.
yeah, but I'm saying we could have a climate action plan for a few years. And while, depending on whether I guess, let's let Dorothea speak, because I guess partially depends on, I don't know how much your work plan is, Dorothea, is dependent on what grants come in or not on something like climate action. I'll let you go.
So yes, as you guys know, I will apply for for grants in regards to climate action planning, like other towns have done it. So by the end of May, we should see, or by June, we should hear back if there is money in the bank. If not, then I suggested in the last meeting, we could possibly apply for ARPA money to do that.
What's your other ideas about what going forward?
So on the residential side, I think we will hear back from Jillian and Natick when we can do the regional residential program. And I hope that will come together by the end of the school year. And then we just continue on with reaching out to residents individually, as I'm doing right now. With the help of Brad and others, we'll just work one home by another.
What do you think it would look like with the regional residential plan? What would that look like?
We don't know yet. I think you have partook in the meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think Brad was there, you were there, and they're currently trying to figure out what's the best way to go about this. And they have talked to many agencies and they just want to run a procurement, and they're trying to figure out how that legally could work if many towns are involved. I'm not sure if you followed the entire meeting, Michael.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of whether, if it comes through, what it means for how we would spend our time in terms of what that would mean. We would run big public programs for both solar and other things, whether that would be and like, what does it mean to do with what about the program of the mass save with All in Energy? Where does that fit into how that works?
Yeah, All in Energy will definitely start. I still have not gotten a signed memorandum from the town administrator. So once we have that, we can talk to our vendor. They are planned to show up for May 7th, and I have ordered a tent. So residents will have the chance to meet them, and then we'll do the blast with them and draft documents that you guys will see with the town seals on there. So that will happen. And hopefully bear more fruit and reel people in doing more things.
So the mass save thing, which obviously is going to happen, whether it'll get signed at some point. That, do you see that as just a major part of your time or just their time, or how do we promote it, or whether that's something that you're just going to do on your own with all in energy, or do you want others, or they're just going to do it themselves? How do you see that actually working in terms of whether it's just something you're doing on your own, and do you want others to help or not? I guess that's what I'm a little of. It's, I guess, whether that's, I'm struggling with whether you feel that you have your finger on what you want to do, and you're going to go ahead and do it, and whether telling us what you're doing is not that useful, good use of your time, because of whether you're going to get people to buy into it, or whether that's and whether there's any work on how we're going to measure what's going on with that, and whatever, and that it's just all in your hands. And it's on here. And it's
So
not worth any more talking about.
Right. So if I understood you correctly, the question was how I envision this program to roll out, right? I mean, the MOU says we need a point person to direct basically these people that are from the vendor to show up at particular events, community events in the community center, whatnot, and do mailings. And then there will be a communication on how many homes have responded, what happens in the house. We will have data that comes back. And yes, I see myself as that person who helps the vendor to roll out the program and the main point person for residents when there are problems. Who else should do that work?
Well, I would assume so.
Yeah, and I envision that to be my kind of primary work, to reducing carbon emissions in this town. And this is a program that will start immediately. And I will try to drive it where however I can.
Okay. So it's not worth, I guess I sense I feel like asking you about it is I guess then in the bigger picture of whether you want help from anybody, or whether we should even ask you to report on it. I'm trying to get a sense of how you want, and I guess maybe I'll say, how do you want to work with this committee? Versus, it seems like when we talked about trying to do a work plan, that you didn't get that, you don't seem to agree with that approach. Whether how do you envision working with the committee, or whether you do your thing and we do our thing, and I don't know what sort of reporting is worthwhile to do, go back and forth about, or am I missing something? And others can chime in as a committee, whether I get the sense that you have your plan of how you want to spend your time, and going over that with us is not necessarily the best use of time.
I see Brett's hands is up.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
I'll just, if it's okay, I'll just briefly share my perspective in terms of how I interpreted it, because it seems like there's a few different interpretations of the goal of and the scope of this work plan. I thought it was just something that was going to help support Dorothea when we, had to touch base with advisory or the select board again, in terms of, how the way that her role was originally presented was like, oh, it's going to fund itself. And, then we realized, given she's more residential side, that it's not that easy. And that's, the grants available, typically, it seems like they're more municipal side. And so this was just, again, this was something that, you know, I think I had interpreted, Dorothea, you were going to start and we were going to help, and it was just going to help support you in your just showing the work, that all the work that you've been doing. It's just now putting it in writing, and it's also going to be a little bit forward looking, so that you know, it's very clear the justification of you know, the justification of your role, which, you know, we all are very supportive of, and you know, it's very, very clear to us. It's just there's that, you know, old job description that it seems to not have been accurately drafted. That was my understanding of the whole thing. And I know that, you know, there is connections to the overall climate action plan too, but I thought that that was the first step we were taking with this. And I didn't want to myself try and start this draft, because I felt, you know, who am I to say, you know, what you've been doing and, you know, what you intend on doing. And, you know, I felt like you should be the first advocate for yourself, and then we'd support you in that.
Mhm.
Dorothea,
Wait a minute. Can I respond real quick?
oh, sure.
Real quick, thank you. So thanks, Brad. And I see my role exactly like that, being like residential outreach and convincing people what they can do. And I do get people that are reaching out to me, and I help them doing that with your help and with others. For example, Frank is also, you know, talking to people that call me, and I'm giving them ideas. I'm looking at energy bills and help them to understand what they can do. So that's my role. And, you know, we'll in this phase, we'll have then more people hopefully doing the home energy assessment, and we're going to keep track of it. And whatever comes out of it will be reported back to the board, to the select board, and to you guys. And if I need more help, then on a bi-weekly basis, I can say, wait a minute, 10 people are basically needing help right now in, you know, with whatever. So it doesn't fit into my 18 hours per week to show up at XYZ to look at their insulation, or to look at their heating system and say, this is not looking good. And then I will let you know if you guys can be helping doing that kind of residential outreach, if I cannot fit it into these 18 hours. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, it makes sense to me, Dorothea. You know, I just had heard Michael ask the question a few times as to how you envision coordinating your functions with the committee. And I didn't really hear a good answer about it until just now. And as far as the grants part of it, I view you and Gino to be co-coordinators. And if he's got a position that generates more grant money, that doesn't mean that he keeps that pot of money to himself, and he would be the first person. He would be the first person to concur in that it's shared by both of you in work. But I do think that you and Gino are both integral parts of the town's energy and sustainability program. I'm not saying you report to us, but I do think it is important that both of you brief this committee regularly on what you're doing, so we know, and we can make sure that we don't step on your toes. We are there to assist you, and vice versa. So I think that it's important that both of you just continue to let us know what you're working on.
We do. We do on a regular basis. It's pretty much clear that I'm working with the schools, that I'm working on the arts and crafts here, that I'm writing up grants by Greenspoon, that I'm collaborating with people in town. And I'm doing residential outreach as much as I can, that I'm writing up a newsletter. What else can one do in 18 hours?
No, I agree. It kind of,
Expect to be in that basket.
no, I agree. It just kind of surprised me that
Yeah,
I didn't hear a full-throated answer to Michael's questions as to how you envision coordinating with the committee until you just responded to Brad. So I agree. I think we have to all work together.
right, exactly. So I'm doing my part in the residential outreach. If I need help, I have people here on the committee that are very open to do that. I just
Right.
need to write a text or an email and people are immediately and that's wonderful. And I'd say I have a big supporter in my very valued colleague, Gino, who is tremendous. And I want to disagree on the fact when you're saying that people think the money that Gino is getting through Green Community is also shared with me. Some people don't have that perspective. And we have heard that on the advisory board. And
Right.
that's problematic how this thing was drafted as a job, that people now think that I'm not worth my money. And that had to do with the fact how it was drafted. And I'm talking about the elephant in the room here, right? And that's just what it is. And there's no other town that's doing it this way. It's just Sherborn. And sorry for being that firm right now. There's got to be, even with Michael, you drafted something, you said reporting structure. This is not what this is meant for. This was a
Which one?
transgression, and
Talking about what was drafted for advisory?
what was drafted in the job description. You heard from advisory, that's not the way it goes in this town. This is not,
I'm less concerned about that than the process that we wrote out. And that I thought was a part of the consensus of everybody here, that we presented at advisory about presenting a work plan to the select board. And
well, but
whether you're going to do that and whether we have to back off from that, because we talked about very explicitly, I mean, I could bring up the points that we said that I thought we were all on the same page of, was where I was sort of trying to get to whether we're revising that, because we basically went in front of advisory and I thought represented you and Gino and the rest of us an approach that they were asking about, and that whether you, even if it's on your own, whether it's still part of it, of are you going to prepare some sort of plan and go to get consensus from the select board about what you're doing and from the town administrator,
I
independent
probably
of
prefer that. Yes, I prefer that. I prefer that I have a direct report like everybody in other towns with a town administrator and reporting through the town administrator to the select board, and people decide what I'm working on. That's how it is in every other town.
okay, that I don't think we were arguing against that, as
Good.
opposed to the fact that we were going to have, whether we do it as a group or you do it as an individual coordinator, that you do that, and that whether that's something that you're going to formally pursue, which is up to you. I don't want to be left making a presentation like I did, that we were going to do some sort of group plan that was going to go to the select board as a group, and which is what I ended up saying to advisory based on what I thought was our group consensus after a couple of meetings. We can change that. But in your case, are you going to do that on your own and report to them? And so that I'm not left with the fact that we put something forward that we're not proceeding on. If that does that make sense to you? That something more formal about a plan, that if you're going to do that to the select, go to the town administrator and the select board and report on that, if you follow that process on your own, okay, that's close to what we said. And
Gino's hand is up.
Yeah, I just want to say that maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that for today, we were each supposed to come out with an outline of things on the municipal side and the residential side, kind of separately as a starting point for discussion today. And this was not to be the end of that process, but the beginning.
right,
And so I did not coordinate with Dorothea on what we were putting together, because I thought this, we were each to do our individual ones and then bring it together here. But what I would like to suggest that she and I work together and bring forth something more advanced at the next meeting. How about that? Because I do think it's important that we do have a consensus work plan on items that would, as Michael, as you said, the three of us, what the three entities, what we would be doing, and get consensus on that among ourselves, and then present that to the new town administrator.
Mhm.
I mean, we certainly have time before there's a new town administrator on board, because that's going to be months away. But we can get that process going now while we have this interim.
well,
Agreed, Gino. Agreed.
so you're agreeing that you would do this some other next step here, as a group plan. I feel like, I mean, there's a certain awkwardness here about the fact that I feel like that I thought that that's what I was saying from the beginning about that kind of thing, of what maybe I wasn't articulate at all about what Gino just put forth. And that's what I thought we had sort of talked about even at the last meeting. But I mean, I don't have a problem with if you want to do your own work plan and do your own channeling versus we do a consensus. I just want to be clear about what we're doing and how we're doing it. I don't want to push it into something that you don't feel comfortable with, and whether you do want to, or whether there is an approach to a consensus work plan, or that we each have our own work plans. I just want to know how we're doing this. And I feel like somehow I was come across as pushing something that you don't want versus what I thought was what we had sort of come up with as a group, because it wasn't my idea, or it came out of your idea at a meeting. That the value of going and getting the select board, you've always touted the fact that getting people at the highest level on the select board
We will.
in line with all of that, and how we actively do that. And we weren't actively doing that to date. So I thought I was translating a bit of what you had started and that we all had agreed on, but I don't know if we've gone full circle, and we can revisit this at the next meeting after you and Gino, if you're work on something.
Good. I
And
see Tom's and Frank's hand up.
If I could, maybe in all of this discussion, maybe it's just another way of looking at it, possibly. And I don't want to add a third wheel to this. I don't want to take it into a different direction.
well, we need
But
four.
you came up with a really good list, Michael, in the very beginning of some of the things that we have going on that are really critically important to our town. We mentioned and I don't know that I can mention all of them like you did, Mike, but we said the action plan, the climate action plan. We talked about, the solar energy program. We talked about the aggregation program. We talked about some of these other programs, EV cars, and the huge, bigger impetus of what's going to save our town, help our town to reduce our energy footprint and environmental footprint, is on the residential side, clearly way larger than the municipal side, even though we have more control over the municipal side. And so Gino came up with a great list of that. So these are all these things we have to work on Now, who does the orchestrating, I guess, is really the question. How do these things happen? Do Dorothy and Gino, are they our conductors and leaders, and we are the orchestra, the symphony, that are going to take the lead from them, and we can do some work. We can work with them. They can work independently from us. Uh, I think that's kind of really where the question is, right? What are the priorities? Which ones, and who's going to do what, and who kind of works that? Do you want to have the town administrator and the select board give that direction? Do you give the direction to all of us, and you guys orchestrate that as you guys as Dorothy and Gino? Or do you want help from the Energy Sustainability Committee to help in the orchestration and the and be the soldiers, to take another analogy, to be the soldiers to get out there and help to do this work, and that we as a team go and make up these presentations and support each other and work to help each other. So I it's just a different way of looking at exactly the same thing that's already been said, but I don't know if it's any clearer or not.
I was going to say something similar to Frank, but a little differently. I think we just had a very good discussion, but I think we constantly struggle with changing priorities and changing kind of direction of our committee, because there's just so much to do. There's too much for 2 part-time coordinators, and there's too much for 5 or 6 volunteers. So, whenever I get into a meeting like this, we're struggling on a point. I just think back to the, one or 2 key things that I've learned, say, being on this committee. And I think the one important thing I learned was, if it was Dorothea's slide or Gino's slide of the greenhouse gas emissions, and as Frank just mentioned, the 85% residential and half split between cars and homes. That's what we got to work on. So Dorothea has projects in that area. Gino has projects. We have projects, and going forward, I would just like to show that slide before beginning of every meeting and just say, how are we attacking this problem? And things like electrical aggregation, every resident will benefit from that. And, I don't hear us talking about that much. And that's what I just wanted to bring up. I think we're all trying to do so many different things that we need to reprioritize and keep it simple.
I guess my question for Dorothy and Gino are in terms of, and I think Mike as well, obviously, is looking at who's taking the lead and who you take the lead from, and how do we prioritize, and how do we get this stuff to happen? How do we make how do we best work together to make this happen? I guess that's the bottom line. So, whether Dorothy and Gino need to sit down and think about that from a perspective, maybe sit down even after you 2 sit together with Mike, or come back to us with some kind of an idea. But I think that's what I'm hearing anyway, is how do we best work together? How do we best accomplish the goal that we're trying to accomplish, which is where we're all on the same page about. And the other thing I'd be a little bit careful with as well is that, yes, having the select board and the town manager be the bosses of this, but they're not living this stuff every day. We're at least a committee that's our focus, and so I think they're delegating some of that to us. Yet, they're the ones with the purse strings. So I understand the importance of them being part of it as well. And I understand why you both feel that that's an important aspect. And yeah, so, because if it doesn't get funded, how do we get this done?
Mm. I think part of what I thought was, and maybe where we are in the end, that, right, we were looking to let Gino and Dorothea develop a set of ideas that could be be the leaders on that thing, is what I thought we were. And I think we're back at that point. And we could start from that at our next meeting, in terms of generating the ideas. And the only parallel issue from that is to what extent there is going to be a formal process of some sort of work plan that goes to the select board from somebody, from the coordinators, and whatever role we play in that, and to what extent that's a formal process that we had discussed in the past and put forth to advisory, and to get buy-in from the town administrator and the select board at some levels, and whether that's still a major activity, so to speak, is what I'd like to know, is in terms of, we can pick that up at our next meeting based on what Gino and Dorothea put together. But I'd like, if you work on something together, that there's some position about to what extent is there a document or something that, whether that is something worth doing, that goes to the select board and the town administrator to get buy-in at the highest levels, or not. I thought that's what I thought we were trying to develop because of what we had said before, but you can come up with a different idea about how that works. Does that point make sense to you, Gino and Dorothea?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the meanwhile, till next meeting, there is an issue for the 6 of us here. We're not the coordinators. Whether we could just wait. I guess for me, I have my list of things I'd like to work on, but I sort of know where they are and how they overlap with what I could see coming out of Dorothy and Gino's, which is wait and see whether there's ideas of particular things that might not show up there that that others of us here might come up with that they want to do. I can't remember, Frank, whether it comes back to an old issue of whether there were really any planning board regs, but I guess you could talk with Gino. Wasn't on his list of where there are regulations at the planning board level beside the building code that would have sustainability impacts. That might be maybe a number 8 or not on your plan, and maybe it's not a high enough priority compared to all the other stuff that we want to do. See if we could just get the solar on the town buildings moving ahead, and progress alone might be what the priority is. Part of what I'd like to think, even to help guide the 6 of us, is what are the priorities. I look at the list of Gino's and I say, yes, I put some time in. I really want to see what we could do to push the solar on the buildings, and whether there's a sub item on your list, Gino, of how do we prepare another Green Communities grant, and whether in the short run the highest priority is how to push the existing one, and what role do we leave it to DPW, who seems to be trying to work on doing it, and whether role we need to play a role in pushing that so we can go for another Green Community grant for the town stuff. And that's just a practical activity of the next few months. But that's the level that I'd like. Once we have a bigger set of issues, we can then hone in on the specific sub activities that have the highest priority. But anybody else want to say anything more until the next meeting?
So I've, I don't know, this, I don't think this is an agenda item, so I don't know if I can comment on it. But it does relate to
It's
this whole.
separate from what we're just currently talking about. It's a new
No,
one.
it's kind of related actually,
Okay.
in that, you know, we're noting, you know, certain programs that we're, or initiatives that we're putting effort into that kind of overlap with the scope of work of Dorothea and Gino. And, you know, I reached out to Craig from Heat Smart Newton, and I also reached out to, I think his name's Grant Gunninson from Zero. And so I'm, you know, continuing work in that front with, you know, heat pump initiatives, trying to collect information to, you know, help inform what type of community, you know, community approach we take, because it is complicated. And, you know, based on, you know, like Dorothea mentioned with the meeting that we attended with Natick, you know, the lawyers are all worried about, you know,
Town
blowback.
liability. Yeah.
Yeah, RFP versus an RFI. But like this is, so anyways, I don't want to go too much into this because again, it's not a formal agenda item, and maybe we can make it one next time around.
No,
And I'll have even more info then.
no, it's part of what we have it on the agenda for work stuff. But right, no, that whole, I mean, right, I'd like to wrestle with if the regional thing sorts out RFI or RFP or whatever it is, what it is once you even get either of those done. What does it really come back to us to then do? Is the meat of that issue. Okay.
And that needs to be
Then
hashed out. And, you know, I can bring more information to the table next time around so that I can share what I've collected. I want to collect some more information too, so that we can, you know, maybe start to fine tune our approach. I want everyone's buy-in.
right. Okay. Well, we're thinking of it. Do we want to pick it? Let's pick a time for next time. The 2 weeks work? I guess more important for Dorothy and Gino.
No, for one thing, it's Patriots Day.
Oh, it's not on my calendar. Oh, wow.
It's school vacation week too.
Marathon Monday.
Yeah. Boo. No meeting then.
After all, plus I guess it's a real holiday for the state, so we can't legally meet then, I think, anyway.
Right.
Do we want to do it in 3 weeks, or do we want to try to do it Tuesday or a Wednesday that week? Oh, that's school vacation week anyway, so what do people want to do? Oops.
Looks to me like
I
we're
think
at the
that
They
25th.
don't
3
have school
weeks at a
kids.
minimum, because
What?
I'm going away next week for a few days too. So, you know, and plus we're moving at the offices. It's a very bad next few weeks.
So
To
we're
get
gonna
it
You
do
know,
the
when is
25th?
the office?
25th?
So the
That's my daughter's.
26th is the annual town meeting.
Not the 25th.
I know, I'm just saying the 26th is the annual town meeting.
All right.
I can't make the 25th. That's my daughter's birthday.
Congratulations.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
One day
Today's my
before
daughter's
mine,
birthday, but she's in the Netherlands, so it doesn't matter.
you're off the hook.
I
You
was
just gotta
like,
shoot a text or a phone call.
we just sang happy birthday to her right before we started the meeting.
No, I would get serious fallout if I spent 2 hours of my evening on this call compared to hanging out with her.
26 is town meeting. Do we know the location? Is that the
Yeah,
high
at the
school?
high school, at the
Yeah.
high school,
It's
Linkworth Common.
9 a.m. or what's the deal?
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
It's a Tuesday.
Oh, of
Oh.
course, it's during the week, of course. PM.
Would 4 o'clock on the 26th be too much?
I think so.
Is there anything we need to talk about before town meeting?
I guess, as long as, I guess if the
students all set for their big presentation?
right,
Oh, the kids are ready.
no, I'm only thinking for the budgets. And I guess I don't, I
You think,
guess,
I don't think there'll be another hold on
yeah,
budget line items,
okay.
be my
Uh,
guess.
Right, I'm only, and I just don't want to, I guess I wouldn't, I guess we'll leave it to you, Gino and Dorothea to front any questions about it. And in terms of, you can decide what you want to say about a process. I just trying to get into, I don't want to, I don't know if the select, if anybody from advisory would bring up that whole issue again.
Does any,
Um,
maybe Gina would know this. Does anybody know the advisory committee warrant write-up comes public and
I think by
It's
April
mailed.
5th, they're supposed to do it or something this week.
Yeah, I believe they were supposed to have their write-ups in by last Wednesday, because one of them asked me to comment on their description of it. And then I guess it goes to the printer from there. So it should be pretty soon. But I don't know exactly.
Yeah, I thought at the last meeting they said something about the 5th or 6th, but who knows?
well, we should read that carefully when it comes out.
So, okay, so we're not doing the 25th. I didn't hear much enthusiasm for the 26th before the town meeting. I could do it, but if we don't, I mean, it's more a matter of what you, I guess it's, I think a major issue will be what Gino and Dorothea, the two of you want to do. What date might be good for you guys, you two?
I don't think it's a good idea to do it just immediately prior to town meeting. Maybe
So-
Wednesday, does Wednesday, somebody has a problem with Wednesdays, I think. If not, why don't we shoot for that? Oh, Frank,
It had been me, but I'm a little more flexible now. Some of the conflict has subsided.
Wednesday, the 27th at 4 o'clock, or plus or minus something?
That's good for me.
Works for me.
I think I'm good.
Wednesday, 27th, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm good.
4 o'clock, the best time, 3:30, 4, 4:30, what works?
Or 4 works, 3, 4 works a lot better.
Yeah. By the way, on that day, there's Massachusetts Gubernatorial Candidate Forum on Energy and the Environment at 6 o'clock, which is interesting.
That, you can remind us on that day then.
Okay, 4 PM on the 27th, Wednesday.
Sounds good.
Okay, and I guess in terms of, we do have a general agenda item. Anybody want to report on any grant or anything new that they're doing there before the meeting? I guess Andy's trying to talk to Boston Solar. And I guess.
Can I mention one thing that's kind of on the agenda?
Oh, yeah, we have to talk about your public meeting, right?
Is there time? The one thing on the flood modeling grant,
Right.
aren't having enough fun at CRWA, and they want to do a third round in another MVP grant, and they're asking for letters of support. So if this committee is interested in supporting it yet again, I have to get them that letter. I think it's due near the end of April. It might be due before our next meeting.
So Tom, refresh my mind.
I'd
Meaning
update.
third round that we participate in like a further step into developing this model, right? And Sherborn being part of that.
Correct. To just make the model better.
Yeah.
A
I guess
third
it
year.
requires your time and Gino's time.
Right. The last 2 years, I put in 50 hours a year, and I forget, what you do.
I think it was like 10 for me. mostly just going to the update meetings.
Yeah, and I'm
Good.
good for that. So I'd like to put in that letter, or I'll send a draft once I get their template.
Why don't, we can have a motion that, I move that the Energy and Sustainability Committee supports further development of the Charles River flooding model as a useful tool for dealing with climate resiliency.
And if I can add a friendly amendment and continue to participate, have Sherborn participate through the Energy and Sustainability Committee on the next MVP grant.
As well as with this, I guess, do we need to include anything about Eugenio in that? Or we'll just,
That'll be in the support letter.
I guess, right, I guess Gino could also support. Okay, so that's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Michael, I, Brad,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Andy.
aye,
Okay, 6-0. You can write a letter and you can
Thank
even
you.
sign it. And you can see if Gino wants to sign it too as a coordinator to sort of add a little something there, or
I think in the past we got the town administrator, so I'll ask her.
okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost 6 o'clock. It's been
yeah,
12.
I gotta get going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that then, and we'll see everybody after hopefully a successful town meeting. And we know where to find each other in the meanwhile. And we'll leave it at that. Okey doke. Oh, move to adjourn at 5:56. Sorry about that.
Second.
Let's see, at 5:56. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Michael, I, Andy,
Aye.
Fred,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Brad.
Aye.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. We'll have our discussion.
Thank
All
you.
next.
right, guys, thank you.
Okay.
Take care, y'all.